Allie Gardner, and I'm the director at ACF Kids. And I was asked to share my testimony, but I wanted to share it in a little different way. I wanted to actually talk about an experience that I had as a child, something that made me who I am today, because God placed a beautiful woman in my life on my path that helped me to feel like I belonged long before I believed in Christ. I grew up in a household where my parents did not graduate from high school. My dad dropped out when he was in 8th grade, and my mom was a freshman in high school. And they knew what life was like without an education. So they really pushed education for me. And my mom actually taught me to read when I was 3 years old, and I loved reading. I loved learning. I was so excited to go to school. I was one of those kids that would wake up before everybody else because today was a school day, not because it was Saturday. One day, I was in the 1st grade, and my class was actually in music, and we were dancing to Skip to My Lou, My Darling. And I remember the secretary walking into the classroom, and she had this weird look on her face, and then she called me out. And as we're walking down this long hallway, I was terrified. I was trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, because I'm a good kid and I shouldn't be going to the office. As we walked through those double doors, I saw my mom. My mom was sitting in a car sobbing, and I'd never seen her like that. And I ran over to her and I asked, "What's wrong?" And all she could get out was, "Daddy has been hit by a train." I don't remember a whole lot at that point. I know we were at the hospital for 8 days while he was in the ICU. It was such a weird experience to walk into this room where your hero, who was so strong and gave you horsey rides, no matter how tired he was after work, would play ball tag in the yard and sit out and watch the stars at night and make stories up. And he was a good storyteller. He used to tell me awesome bedtime stories with these goofy voices every night. And then he'd give me butterfly kisses before we'd go to sleep. So it was really hard seeing him there like that. I remember the look on some adult faces that came in to talk to us the last day. They knew what was coming, and they gave us time to say goodbye. And I will tell you that that moment with my dad is precious, and it's hard to put into words what it felt like to say goodbye. But I'm grateful for it. And I hugged him and I told him I loved him and gave him one last butterfly kiss. And then life was kind of a blur after that for a while. It was decided that we needed to normalize a little bit, and that meant going back to school. And it'd been a while since we'd been, and I had this irrational fear that when that door opened every time to the classroom, that somebody else was going to be gone. And so school had lost that enchantment, that excitement that I'd had. And one day I was sitting in my little group, and the kids started talking about their dads. And my heart broke, and I started crying, and I was embarrassed, so I crawled underneath the table. And I cried, and the next thing I know, my teacher, Mrs. Fred, had pulled me out onto her lap, and the whole class was gone. She'd sent them all out. And she sat and she just held me, and she let me sob. And I'm talking ugly girl sobbing. Like ugly, crying, just terrible, right? And she just held me, and she let me cry, and she rocked me back and forth, and she rubbed my back and just let me cry. And And then I sat there and she pulled back and looked me straight in the eye and she said, "I love you." And in that moment, I had two thoughts. The first one was, that's weird. My teacher just said she loves me. And the very next thought was, I'm going to be a teacher someday. Because in that moment, I recognized a feeling, a warmth that was spreading through me of something I'd forgotten. A passion, a love. And I recognized that I wanted to do that for another child someday. So I've been an educator and I've been able to love and serve kids all over the world. I have been blessed to serve kids the ones that everybody says they don't want, because I was one of them, so I know where they're coming from. And I'll tell you that a lot of people question why I want to serve at ACF Kids, and I'll tell you it's because of Mrs. Fred. I felt this call, a purpose in my life when I was really young. I was only 7 when I knew what I wanted to do. And it was not something that I had thought out, it was something I felt. And it was because of somebody in my path, in my story, that loved me enough to show me that I could continue living even when times were tough. And I would venture to say that if you are struggling to find that purpose, if you are struggling to figure out what it is that you're being called to do, go out and serve. I'd love for you to come join our empowered team. We encourage families and children right where they are, and we engage the whole child of God. That means mind, body, and spirit, because we down there are loving these kids so that we can equip them to go and amplify the grace of Jesus to the church, the unchurched, and the de-churched. We'd love to have you come down and learn what love is really about.